The Raven and the Monk's Heart. High on a quiet hill, where the wind whispered through the trees and clouds barely touched the tops of the pines, lived an old monk named Genjo. His temple was neither large nor filled with riches, yet his presence was enough to make anyone feel that, for a moment, the world ceased to hurt. One afternoon, as he swept fallen leaves from the path, he heard a rough caw. Looking up, he saw a black raven perched on a bare branch. The bird seemed restless, as if it had lost something it didn't know how to find. Genjo watched quietly. The raven looked back, and in that silent exchange of gazes, without words, they recognized each other. "Are you lost, friend?" the monk asked gently. The raven didn't answer, but it didn't fly away. It only lowered its head, as if carrying the weight of all the winters on its wings. Then Genjo smiled. "It's all right. You may stay. Here, even those who don't know what they seek are welcome." That night, the raven slept under the temple's eaves. And for the first time in many days, the bird's heart and the monks found rest. The next morning, Genjo placed a bowl of fresh water and some grains by the temple's entrance. The raven slowly descended, stepping cautiously, as if unsure whether it deserved such a gesture. "You don't need to fear," the monk said without looking at the raven. "Here nothing is demanded, neither to fly high nor to sing beautifully, just to be." The raven drank in silence. This place offered nothing but peace, a feeling it didn't fully understand yet, but its weary body began to crave. Day after day, the raven stayed. It neither cawed nor flew away. It simply watched. The monk did the same. In their quiet companionship, something invisible began to heal between them. One evening, as the sun faded behind the hills, Genjo spoke for no apparent reason. "You know, friend, sometimes the heaviest burden isn't sadness itself, but not knowing why it's there." The raven lowered its head. Something stirred inside. But not all pain needs explanation. Some simply need to be held gently, like holding a wounded bird, without asking how it got hurt. The wind softly blew through the pines, as if it too was listening. Days passed, and the raven began to follow the monk on his morning walks through the forest. They didn't speak. They didn't explain anything. They simply shared the same pace, the same moment. One morning, as they crossed a stream with crystal clear water, Genjo stopped and pointed to their reflection. "Look," he said. "The water doesn't get angry when stepped on, nor does it feel sad for having no shape. It just flows. It accepts every stone, every fallen branch, even us." The raven approached the edge. It saw its own image, a bird with dark feathers, tired eyes, and a distant expression. For a moment, it wanted to look away, but it didn't. "Pain doesn't make you ugly," Genjo whispered, as if reading its thoughts. "Pain makes you real." The raven lifted its beak. A warm breeze gently brushed its wings. From that day on, the raven no longer hid in the high branches. It came down to the ground, walked alongside the monk, and even cawed from time to time. Its sadness hadn't vanished, but it was no longer alone with it. One cloudy afternoon, a young traveler arrived at the temple. His face was covered in dust, and though his eyes were young, they held the look of someone who had cried silently many times. "I've lost everything," he said to the monk, without even greeting him. "No home, no family, no purpose, just sadness." Genjo didn't answer right away. He pointed to the wooden bench under the plum tree and sat down. The raven flew down from a branch and perched quietly beside the monk. The young man looked at them, confused. "Is that it? Aren't you going to say something to save me?" Genjo gently stroked the raven's head and said, "Look at this bird. One day it came here just like you, broken inside. not knowing why it was still alive. I didn't give it answers, just space. The raven softly cawed, as if confirming the monk's words. Sometimes, the only thing pain needs is for you to stop clenching your teeth around it. There's no quick salvation, only patient presence. The young man sat beside them. He didn't cry, but for the first time in days, he stayed still without fear. And that was his first medicine. The next day, the young man woke to the distant caw of a raven. It wasn't a beautiful song, but it was honest. A sound that didn't ask for applause, only to be heard without judgment. Genjo was already awake, meditating by the pond. The raven sat still beside him, as if it too was in meditation. "Why doesn't a nightingale sing in this temple?" the young man asked. "Because this place wasn't made for those who want to shine," the monk replied. "But for those who simply want to breathe." The young man lowered his head, moved by the simplicity of that truth. "Yesterday I thought about leaving," he confessed. "Today I don't want to go, but I don't know why I should stay either." Genjo smiled gently. The raven didn't know why it stayed either. It just felt that here, it didn't have to pretend to be okay. The young man looked at the raven, who watched him with calm eyes. It was the first time someone or something had looked back without trying to change him. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the rush to understand. He just felt that being there was enough. The days passed without hurry. The young man helped in the garden, listened to the wind, and shared silent moments with the raven. Sometimes he spoke with Genjo. Other times, he simply stayed by his side, letting the sadness slowly slide out of his body like dew evaporating in the sun. One afternoon, while sweeping dry leaves near the temple, the young man asked, "Is the raven still sad?" Genjo set the broom against the wall and looked at the bird, which was then playing with a small twig on the ground. "Maybe, but it no longer runs from its sadness. It has made it part of its flight, and that is flying too." The young man nodded, understanding for the first time that sadness doesn't have to be conquered to live fully. "And you, master? Have you never felt broken?" Genjo smiled with a warmth that didn't come from his mouth, but from his eyes. "Anyone who has loved has felt that, but a broken heart lets more light in." At that moment, the raven took flight. Not too high, not too far, just enough. And seeing it, the young man felt something inside him rise as well. It wasn't joy yet, but it wasn't pain either. It was something new, silent hope. That night, the young man couldn't sleep, but it wasn't anguish keeping him awake. Something inside him had begun to awaken. He got up and stepped outside the temple. The moon softly lit the forest, and the raven slept on the eaves, its feathers ruffled by the breeze. Genjo was sitting on a stone, gazing at the starry sky. "I can't help but think," the young man said, "about everything I've lost." The monk nodded without taking his eyes off the heavens. "And that's okay. Remembering is part of grieving. But don't chain yourself to what no longer exists. Look at the raven. It doesn't sing like a nightingale, it doesn't fly like a hawk. Yet here it is, completely itself." The young man sat beside him. Silence wrapped around them. "How do you know I won't fall again?" Genjo answered in a calm voice, "You will fall. We all do. But you won't fall alone anymore. And that changes everything." The raven, as if hearing those words even in sleep, nestled more peacefully under its wing. And for the first time, the young man felt he didn't have to run from his own sadness anymore. Not to conquer it, but to embrace it. The morning came with gentle light and a fresh breeze. The young man rose before the sun, drank from the spring, and swept the path without being asked. Not out of duty but gratitude. The raven flew to him and perched on a nearby rock. It watched him silently. The heaviness was gone from its eyes, only presence remained. The young man met its gaze and smiled. From the temple's doorway, Genjo observed the scene without a word. He knew that not all wounds heal with words. Some only mend when seen without judgment, shared in silence. The young man approached the monk. "Master, I still have no answers." Genjo nodded with his usual peace. "You didn't come here to find answers. You came to remember you're not alone." The ravens softly cawed, as if confirming the lesson. And so, high on that hill where the wind, silence, and weary souls lived, three hearts, the monk's, the raven's, and the young man's, began to beat as one. Slow, honest, human. Because sometimes sadness doesn't need to be solved. It just needs to be held until it can fly.